Well guys, with a little luck, the big day is here and we'll finally be test driving the Yerf dog go-kart for the first time. The holdup has been, the latest holdup has been this chain. No amount of soaking or heating or anything is able to free up this chain. A lot of the links are freed up, but then there are just some that are just so stubborn they just don't want to give. So this chain I decided was junk. So I ended up taking a guess. When I was at the flea market, I saw some chain. Ended up being completely wrong because I forgot to bring the master link from the old chain with me so I could compare it. So then I went online and I found out, well, how do you measure these chains? And it turns out that it's not that hard to do, and that they use a 3-digit code number basically to determine the chain, and I think it has something to do with like the length between the pins here is, I think, measured in 1/16 of an inch, and if it ends up being 5/16, then I think your first digit is a 5. And I'm going from memory, so if I got this wrong, I apologize. And I think the width from, not the outer link where the outer part is, but on this inner part right here, that length right there, if you measure that, I think they do that in eighths. So I think this is 3/8, 5/16 here to here, 3/8 here to here, which leads you to 5/3, and then they put a 0 on it. So it's a 5/30 chain. And then I went online and I found a couple of different posts that said that this Yerf dog model uses a 5/30/60 link chain. So then I counted how many links were in this original chain, and sure enough there was 60. So I felt really good about the fact that it was a 5/30/60 length chain. So then I looked around and I found one on eBay, and I don't even remember how much this ended up costing. But it came in, and some of you may be curious, so I'm going to just look. Oh, so it was $25 with free shipping, which isn't bad considering, look, this came in a flat rate envelope, which means this probably, based on my experience, cost about $8 to ship it, which means essentially chain was 17 bucks. Didn't go for any fancy schmancy colors, anodized chains or whatever. It's made in China. It says right on it 5/30/60. So far it's looking good. It's got quite a bit of oil on it to keep it from rusting on the slow boat from China. Alright, the length looks good here, and the width looks good too. Okay, great. We're golden. Oh, you know what I wanted to mention? If you guys are going to go on eBay and look for the cheapest chain, so you know, you put in your chain size and then you get all the results and then you sort them from lowest to highest in price. I want to give you just a tip, because I thought it was kind of odd that what a lot of the sellers on eBay are doing is they're showing a photograph of a chain, but when you sort to lowest and you look at the lowest prices, there's something wrong with the price being so low, and then you have to read the description, or to me it seemed like it was a little ambiguous. And what they were apparently doing is selling you a section of chain or a piece of chain or just a few links or just one link. It's just kind of weird. I don't remember exactly what it was, but just keep that in mind. Make sure you're getting a full chain, and make sure you're getting a master link. And I need a more proper tool to do this before I bend that damn thing. Oh, I forgot to hit record, but with a pair of pliers like this, you can actually hook onto one pin and then push and pop it off pretty easily. Here's the tank that came with the Yerf dog when we got it. It's got a cap with a built-in vent, and it's clearly the correct tank because it says Yerf dog right on it. And this side has all of the damage from the high heat, the fire that occurred. So initially I thought this tank was useless, but it turns out I just did a real, for lack of a more professional pressure test, I just basically blew into this thing while covering the only outlet over here, and I think this is still actually airtight, which means it's probably fuel tight. It's got these built-in or these molded in connections right here for mounting it on the bracket that exists on the Yerf dog. So if we can use this original correct tank, it would make life a lot easier as opposed to having to figure out a way to mount up some other kind of tank. So the issue that I see with this right off the bat is the outlet right here is huge. I don't know what the heck was going on over here. This is tilted up a little bit, which is not ideal. So this tank sits like this. So that is the low point. So that nozzle right there is actually tilted up like this a little bit. Should be level or even tilted down a little. I don't think that's going to make much difference until the fuel level gets really low. So I'm not too concerned about that. The main issue is I'm wondering what the heck size this fitting was that was here. I don't know if there was a part that melted off, or if this is really just a barbed fitting that has lost its shape because of the fire. You can see it's a mess. Well, I looked around in my shop and I can't find any hose that has an ID large enough to fit over this nipple, or what's left of this nipple. My idea was that I'd get a short little length of hose that would fit over this, clamp it on here, then use a reduction fitting to get down to a smaller sized line like this that could then go over and interface with the new carburetor. This is the old carburetor, so the fuel line on the carburetor is about like this, so similar to that nipple there. So this would work just fine. And I'm sure I could find enough brass fittings to put together, even if I don't have a straight reduction. I could put something together to make that happen. But what's stopping me from doing anything on that today is not having any hose that will fit this. I also thought about, well, I've got plenty of pipe taps. I also thought about just putting an NPT pipe tap in here and cutting threads and threading a fitting right into here to directly go to this size line. My fear on that is that the wall on this, because it's partially melted, the wall's kind of thin on this area here, so I wouldn't be surprised at all when I went to tighten that fitting in, if it would crack. Wouldn't surprise me. And then we'd have a leak in a dangerous area. So I think we're just gonna go with an auxiliary fuel tank of some other type temporarily. Funny how things work out. I was about to give up and then I stumbled across this old piece of tubing that I had. It's got some age to it, but it's not all dry rotted. And that's all I had was this few inches, but that's actually all I need. Matter of fact, it's more than I need. It fits tight over this, so I'm going to put a clamp on this. And then I'm going to cut this back as far as I can to allow enough hose to adapt to this fitting. And then I've got a reduction fitting and then another barbed fitting that gets me down to, in one step, I go from this size hose to this size hose, which will work on the carburetor. I already tried it, so that's a step in the right direction. I am going to want to put a fuel shut off on this, just for good measure, and I'm going to warn Aiden that he needs to make sure that he shuts the fuel off whenever he's done using this thing, because if the needle valve in the carburetor sticks in the float bowl, it'll flood out, and all that gas will go into the cylinder, work its way down past the piston rings, and dilute the crankcase oil. Hey, it's December 28th, 2020, so we only got a couple more days left in this year, and we wanted to see if we can actually get this thing moving today. So what I've been working on is trying to rig up being able to use this old gas tank that came with it. So I've got a mess of fittings over here, I'll show you in a second, that it's kind of quite the adventure to get this strange plastic plug on the outside of this tank to reduce down to a fitting size so I could put a inline shutoff, which I wanted to have on here. And then also I also wanted to the size of the barbed fitting on the shutoff is larger than this tiny little line that they use for the input to the carburetor.
Matter of fact, I don't even have any line this small, so this piece of line right here was actually the drain off the bowl for the carburetor. So we stole this off the bowl, and we're going to use this for the time being. I don't have any of these tiny little clips left either. These lousy little wire clips that they use, so I'm hoping that this barb fitting that I have in here will be a tight enough fit that it won't leak. So what I did was I mounted up the tank, and I ended up putting on the shutoff in the off position and put fuel in the tank, and it's been in there for at least 20 minutes now, and there's no signs of leaks. So I know this mess, this Frankenstein job I did over here is actually working out okay. It's basically a large piece of fuel line that I could tightly get to fit around that plastic nub that sticks out of the partially melted tank. Adapted to, this is actually a threaded fitting that's going in here, not even a barb, but I just clamped down on it really tight, to a threaded fitting, to another threaded adapter, to an elbow, to a barbed fitting, to this size line, to this shutoff, which is just a small engine shutoff from Napa, to a piece of line that I actually had a bend in it already, which works out so that we can actually turn it down this way. And now this line to the carburetor is going to go on here, and as long as that doesn't leak, we should be okay. So I'm going to take our plastic inlet cover off that we had on there for protection, keep rainwater from getting in there. I'm going to take that off, and I guess we're going to get ready to try and start this thing, if I can remember how we had hooked up these wires. All right, so we still don't have all the wiring straightened out, so we're going to just jump it off my battery starter charger to get it cranking, and hopefully it'll run. It's been a while since we started this thing, and I'll just use my hand to choke it. That's, I think, what we did last time.
Yeah. Then we need to turn it.
Yeah, I got to turn the fuel on. Just let that run for a minute, make sure there's no leaks.
Yep, one leak.
Yeah. Leaking. Where's that leaking from? Well, let's see. It can't be on the input side because it wasn't leaking, so it's got to be this fitting right here that's leaking.
You need to tighten it down.
I tightened it quite a bit. That's pretty tight. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Reset, engine start.
Wait, no,
oh my
no,
God.
No, stop.
Holy crap. Where's that pouring out of?
The float thing, I think.
Gas pouring out of the bottom of this carburetor.
That didn't happen before, so it's probably the line we put on it, not tightening.
The line goes in right here, Aiden, and this is dry. That gas is pouring out from somewhere else.
Hit the carburetor a little bit, see if it's like...
Is it coming out of the drain on the bowl?
I don't think so.
Because if it's coming out of the drain on the bowl, then it means that drain's open. It shouldn't be. If it's coming out of the vent, it means that the float is sticking. Well, I see the screw for the, I could see that screw.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. Let me see if that screw's open. Well, why would that be open? We didn't open it. Yeah, no, your luck's not that good. That's not open. This piece of crap Chinese carburetor is already malfunctioning.
or the needles, or the thing stuck.
And it would be stuck. Why?
I don't know.
Because it's a piece of crap Chinese carburetor. My point still stands. If this carburetor is doing its job, as the gas fills that bowl, the float comes up and shuts the needle valve. Correct? So no matter how you slice it, it comes down to that carburetor is not doing its job. Piece of crap.
You need to edit that out.
I don't need to edit anything out. Once this ran. Once. And I'd like to point out to you, technically when we ran this last time, all we did was put a little bit of gas in it with that little tiny plastic thing I had.
Yeah.
So we never actually used this carburetor with full gravity flow to it. So this thing may have not worked from day one. Sometimes the float sticks. It shouldn't, but I'm just trying to see if we can avoid having to take this whole carburetor out again. All right, keep your eyes peeled. Gas on.
Nothing.
Give it a second.
Yep. There we go.
Yeah.
Where's it coming out?
Coming right out of the throat right here.
Yeah.
And it's coming out of the throat. So that means it's bubbling up right out of the, it's overflowing is what's happening. This bowl is overflowing, so the float is not doing its job, not seating. If there wasn't so much gas sitting on the top here, I'd say we could still start it with the fuel line off, with the fuel shut off, and it'll run off of the fuel in the carburetor, but there's so much fuel sitting on top of this thing, flipping fire hazard. Let me get some gloves, because I don't want to get gas all over my hands. So I'm going to have to take that carburetor out. What's that?
That's what happened before when it caught on fire.
I don't know. We may never know how that happened. Could have been any number of things. It could have been a fuel line that was leaking. I mean, look at the way this is all, you know. I mean, the muffler's over here, so you would think that fuel leaking here wouldn't necessarily hit anything hot enough to catch fire, but I don't know. I think I got a jar right over there by the four-wheeler. Could you grab that jar? Try and dump some of this gas out of the carburetor into the jar instead of the ground. Oh, yeah, there's a ton of gas went into that intake. I could see it.
That's not good.
No, that's exactly why you always make sure this valve is shut off whenever you park the vehicle, whenever you're done using it, because you don't know. You never know what might. Jesus. Comes out of one spot, so I move the jar to the other spot, then it comes out of the other spot. I'm just going to open up the bowl drain. That's the low point.
Where is it coming out?
Where's more coming out?
No.
It's supposed to come out there. I just opened the drain. This is the drain for the bowl.
Yeah.
This is the valve that opens and closes it. And now I'm going to close it so it doesn't keep leaking. Now I'm going to go get a Phillips head screwdriver to take the 4 little junky screws out, so we can take a look at what's going on with that float.
Screws are hard to take out.
Yeah, because they've never been taken out before, and they're soft metal that strips easy. It's not a good screwdriver for this job.
What's a good one?
We'll find one that fits better.
I'm going to go inside for a couple seconds.
All right, you go ahead and rest up. Oh, that's enough to make me angry. I'm going to beat on this on the bench. Actually, I went to the cellar stairs where I could get more purchase on it, and then I actually abandoned the screwdriver and used pliers to grab the screw head to get more torque on them to break them free. And they made a little snapping noise and then turned freely, which would indicate to me that these guys who made this carburetor and assembled it thought it would be really cute to put some sort of little bit of a locking, thread locking stuff on the threads before they assembled it. They'd probably giggle as they put it on. Piece of crap. So I'm going to take this line off of here and I'm going to put it on here and blow. Can hear some leakage. Look at that. It's hanging. It's working now. Why? Why was it hanging? Alright, it's working now, but I'm a little concerned why it was hanging a little bit. Well, it seems to be working now. Maybe there was a little chunk of debris or something from the manufacturing process that was stuck in there. Oh man, I can't believe how bad this screwdriver is coming. And this is a good number 2 Phillips head. It's not all chowed out. I'm gonna go find a damn screwdriver that I can tighten this with. All right, let's try this again. Leaking again. Leaking again, and the sun is setting. So it ain't happening today. I'm gonna take the carburetor out again, take it down into the basement where I can work on the workbench in better light, better conditions. See if we can't figure out what's going on. Maybe I got to adjust the float height. I don't know. We'll see. Well, I'm in the process of taking the carburetor out this second time. I realized that when I went to install the carburetor on the second attempt after messing with the float, I inadvertently had disconnected this vacuum line, and because it's the same color, I accidentally hooked this up to the fuel. So I essentially, when I opened that valve on the second try, I was dumping fuel directly into the manifold. In other words, dope. So now I want to take the spark plug out because I know that I've basically flooded the engine. Yeah, I mean, gas is, I don't even have to crank it, and gas is coming out as soon as I take the plug out. I really flooded it. I'm going to crank this. I'm going to disconnect the ignition coil so that I don't have any source of ignition when I crank this thing. I don't want to turn that into a flamethrower. You see the gas that squirted out of that thing? Okay.
Did you fix the problem?
I fixed one problem and I created another one. So I just took the spark plug out and cranked it over to get the gas out of the cylinder, because that cylinder was chock full of gas.
Oh.
And, you know, didn't want... there's no way it would start with it flooded that badly, and that would just end up forcing the gas down into the... past the cylinder and the rings, past the piston and the rings and into the crankcase. As it is, there's probably some gas got into that crankcase, so might not be a bad idea to do another oil change on this, even though we just put that oil in there.
Do you think we can drive it today?
I don't know. If we can get everything straightened out, maybe just get it running, then I would recommend maybe we just wait until tomorrow. I really don't want to get this thing up to full operating temperature with all this gas all over it. But it's not leaking anymore. See, I get the valve on. So when I hooked it up the second time,
yeah,
this line fell off.
Yeah.
And I inadvertently hooked this line up to here.
Oh, that's not good.
And so gas was going directly into this port right here on the intake manifold and filling up the cylinder. So that's why as soon as I realized I did that, I didn't dare crank it over. I wanted to take the plug out, because with it being completely flooded, it certainly wouldn't want to start.
I found out how to switch the colors on my keyboard.
Well, now I can sleep at night.
Yeah. No, actually, it looks pretty good right now.
It would be easy to cross-thread this spark plug in this cylinder, because this frame isn't just in the way of putting the plug wrench in there straight. See, it doesn't go in there straight?
Yeah.
So you got to start it by hand first, for sure. Otherwise, you're just asking for disaster.
Behind you. Other way.
No, maybe not.
Sure we don't have to pull that thing on the bottom? It looks like...
Okay, the switch on the bottom that you're talking about pulling, that's the brake interlock switch. Mm-hmm. That keeps you from being able to crank the engine without stepping on the pedal.
Now.
I'm completely bypassing that by jumping the wire.
Yeah.
So that safety switch has nothing to do with what's going on here.
Okay.
All right.
Now what are we doing?
So the only thing that's going on here is the ignition. Is the ignition working correctly? So if I recall correctly, I believe this wire is going to the ground, and that when that switch is on, all it does is ground it. This is
ground.
See, that's going to that. That's going up there.
I think that's ground.
Yeah, that's ground. And then this is the return. and it goes to here. Right, to the ignition module. So if the switch is still working correctly, then we should still be getting ignition. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to pull the plug. We're going to verify we have spark, which I guess I should have done when I had the plug out just now, but I had faith in that still working. Put this on here. Ground this.
Wait. It says wait. And then start ready.
Plenty of spark. Okay, good.
There. Oh.
There you go. Try it again.
Ready.
Try it again.
What was that?
Throttle was up a little too high, I think. All right, let's try it with the gas on and see if it stays running.
You want to hold the thing? Can you set that in?
Yeah, go ahead. Ready?
Yeah.
Not staying running. Why don't you sit in it, put your foot on the brake?
What?
Gas. Leaking out again. Carburetor's leaking again.
It's coming out of the overflow. This
Right,
thing.
right. Which the only reason it would come out of the overflow
If it was
is if
thick.
again, if the float is not doing its job and shutting the needle valve.
Yeah. You're still gonna try it?
Yeah. All right, that's it. That's it for tonight. I've had it. I'm cold. It's getting dark.
Yeah, I'm cold too.
And I'm miserable.